Hello and welcome to Robinson Hall Experts Talk. My name's Laura Saunders, Marketing and PR Manager at Robinson Hall, and today is the 1st of July. I have Charles Lovell and David Jones with me, and we are going to be talking about auction success stories. David Jones is the auctioneer. David has been instrumental in Robinson Hall's growth for the past 4 decades. He heads up our agency team and can be found on the rostrum at our property auctions bi-monthly, rapidly concluding sales at the drop of his gavel. Charles Lovell is head of auctions. Charles has worked at Robinson Hall for over 13 years and has been a key part in building the auction department into one of the most successful regional auction houses in the country. Welcome, David and Charles.
Thank you, Laura.
Hello there. Thank you for inviting us along.
Yeah.
So first things first, we've just had our June auction last week. How did it go?
Well, I think we were very, very pleased with how it went. Indeed, all the auctions this year have gone well in terms of lot numbers that we've had into the auction, the number of people who've turned up physically to the auction room, the number of people who've registered to bid online, and the numbers of properties we've sold. So all of our sort of key statistics keep going upwards. I think the popularity of auctions generally, and of our auction in particular, seems to be on the rise. And certainly at the auction last week, we came away very pleased with the success we had.
Great, perfect.
And I think another thing to add is that last week we sold our highest ever value property in the room, which was a splendid house, or a house needing quite a lot of work actually, but a house in Gerrards Cross, a very desirable town is Gerrards Cross, or village. It's just on the edge of the M25, Buckinghamshire, commands high values, and this one particular road, Camp Road, is a lovely private road with some delightful properties along there. And we were fortunate enough to have a property which had actually failed to sell twice through our referring agent. And David was instrumental in securing the instruction.
Well, I was. Camp Road in Gerrards Cross, actually, it's a private estate road. There's houses down there that sell for £3 or £4 million. Some of them have been done up into beautiful properties. This is probably, if you like, the worst house on the best road. I think our seller's parents had lived there for a number of years, and it was fairly tired. It needed extending. There were question marks over some covenants that were held by a neighbour, and there were a few sort of messy bits and bobs on it, and the sales kept falling through. Because once buyers had a chance to sort of crawl all over these things, and their lawyers had a chance to crawl over these things, they talked themselves out of what would have actually been a really good purchase to buy, a property that can be done up on a really, really good road. So I think it was an error from those buyers. When we went and spoke to the seller, all they wanted to do was to sell it for a decent price with a minimal possible fuss, and so we took it in at a good guide price. We took it in at 1.3 million. They previously had offers, I think, up at 1.6 and 1.8 million, and they thought that was what it was worth, but it kept falling through. But we put it in at 1.3, and of course we're bidding in the room, and once we inject clarity over that legal pack that we have to make available beforehand, the bidding went up and up and up, and it sold to a young couple at £1.64 million. So it made the sort of figure that it really ought to have made, but we managed to break through the sort of the fog of the of the sale that was surrounding that particular property,
and the speed that came in actually as a late instruction. So from instruction to exchange was probably just a shade under 4 weeks.
Wow. So that's a key example of how quickly we can sell a property. Were there any other lots that sold for more than we expected?
Yes, I had a lovely client in Harrow. Alan, he was actually a blind person, and assisting him were a great organisation, Middlesex Association for the Blind, and David from the association came across us, invited me to go out and meet them and discuss the possibility of auction. Alan wanted to move to Marlborough, where his sister lived, and really, given the difficulties that life presents him, he wanted as simple and straightforward a sale as possible. So we sat and discussed. We talked about guide and reserve prices and where I thought the property would achieve, because he had actually found a property that he wanted to buy. He found a property that he was asking, I think, 425,000.
Right.
We guided his house because it did need quite a bit of work doing to it, at 325,000. I did say to them I thought that it would achieve the 425, possibly even 450. Again, sold nice and quickly, very straightforward, and we achieved 490,000.
Wow.
And it was really nice because Alan and David from Middlesex Blind Association, he came along with Alan's sister and their solicitor that we introduced them to, Jackie Stays. So they all came to the auction, really delighted with the price, and we look forward to Alan being able to move to Marlborough in a couple of weeks' time.
Great, that's a lovely story. So tell me about some success stories and inspiring tales in addition to that.
Well, a piece of land which was eastern side of Abbott's Rise in King's Langley, and a number of houses backed onto it. I think that's 12 houses backed onto it, and the neighbours all clubbed together and bought it for themselves. And I thought that was really nice, and it just enabled them all just to come together. I think the speed of the auction process cuts out a lot of fuss.
Yeah.
You know, people, if that private treaty, trying to get everybody together, and then somebody would change their mind, and somebody else would, it would just go up and down and all over the place, and it would never happen. But you know, the fact of the matter is, it's going to exchange on Wednesday, and if we don't go along and all come together, we won't do it. So it pulled everybody together. And they've got a nice little bit of woodland, which I don't know how they're going to deal with it, whether they're going to make a common space between them, or they're going to add to individual gardens. But you know, it made it happen for them. So that was I think that was a nice tale. And yeah, just a couple of other houses went very well. We had another piece of land at Bletsoe, that was adjacent to the church. That was a local buyer that bought that. Very keen to sort of protect what was already there and you know, keep the status quo. We had a house in quite a decent sized plot just outside of Marston Mortain called Two Hoots, and that went extremely well. And a family home at Clapham. Mum and Dad had passed away. We were selling for two sisters, and there was an ex-local authority 4-bed semi, and that achieved fantastic price. We really got probably £20,000-30,000 more than the agents had expected that to achieve. And I was particularly pleased because the agent referring it to us was Russell Beard, and I've got a lot of time for Russell. And this was the family home of dear friends of his mother. So you know, it's a nice story that you know, everybody was happy with the price that was achieved on it, and of course the speed and the simplicity of the sale.
Just to highlight, one it actually sold after the auction. It was a pub. We had a sale called that up in a pretty Northamptonshire village, and it's a pretty pub of some size. You've got a flat above it, a decent garden, decent car park. But you know, village pubs are not doing very well these days, and there's plenty of them on the market. But we've had two recently, and to get the hair away, it was after the auction. To a buyer afterwards, I think was really good for the sellers, that you know, that they were keen to move on. We had one about a year ago in Maids Morton as well, near Buckingham. that actually be sold before the auction. So we don't have to actually sell things in the room. They can sell before, they can sell after. But we have got 2 pubs away in what's a very difficult market. It's hard work being a publican these days, and there's plenty of pubs about. But through auction, we seem to be able to find
Sell them.
find a buyer. Yes.
I think these examples are just good to show the variety of properties and land that we sell, as Charles and David have both provided examples. They've been a range of property, we've got some land, we've got some pubs.
And they're not all glamorous high-priced properties. In the last auction, we had a scrap of land behind some terraced houses with a tumble-down building on it. I think the guide was 25,000. We sold it for 40 or 45,000 pounds, I think, in the end. A modest property. But we sold it for very nearly double its guide price, and we turned it around in a matter of whatever 5 or 6 weeks from taking that instruction.
So is there a general pattern for the types of lots which sell well at auction?
Well, I think that any property can sell well at auction if it's priced right. Charles has a slightly different view on some properties, but most of our properties will fall within a couple of categories. The one would be just a straight investment property, a flat or a shop that has a tenant in, and or you can get a tenant into it, and people buy property for investment purposes. And the second would be a property where something can be done to it, either improving it physically, or there might be a legal issue that needs sorting out, or whatever it might be. So a lot of properties are either projects for people or they're investments for people. But ultimately, anything really can come to an auction.
I think so, but on the flip side of that, I think that your average house where the buyer is almost certainly going to be selling their property to buy, or the greater number of buyers are going to be selling their property to buy. They're buying it to move in. They'll be linked in with a chain. Perhaps auction doesn't work as well for that type of property. My view is that really the ones that work best are where people can see that there's a way of adding value. And as David said, that might be resolving a legal issue. It might be simply improving the value. It might be that people can see that they can subdivide it. If they can see that there's value to add, they will then have to ask themselves really what's the very best price that they will pay. And in bringing people together in that transparent manner of an auction room where each party can gain confidence from each other, the likelihood is you'll push people slightly beyond where they wanted to pay.
And I guess it's worth mentioning land as well.
Land,
it's not just property.
We think of property as
land,
residential, commercial, mixed use.
Yeah.
We sell it all.
I think Charles's point, we don't really dip too much to Charles, but Charles's point is that we have access to buyers with money who can and will buy things. It's not dependent on borrowing or third parties that slow it down. There was a statistic came out, a report came out only last week saying that the time it takes in the private treaty market to get from instruction to completion, I think it was a bit over 200 days, 205 days, 210 days, something like that. In auction, we get to exchange of contracts in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And that's because we have buyers who have cash they can and will buy. So yes, those properties that Charles talks about, where you get into a chain, yes, I suppose you can convince yourself that you can't come to auction, but there will be buyers there at the right price if you want to get on with the job.
Certainly. Yeah.
So what are the 5 biggest benefits then? Obviously speed's one.
Yeah, speed of sale has got to be one of the biggest ones, but certainty of sale.
Yeah.
We don't just take things in for whatever price just to get the listing. We try and have a realistic conversation with sellers about what the guide price needs to be in order to attract a queue of people. Auction works on the basis that if you've got that competition, ultimately the price will work itself out. But we've got to put something in at an attractive level, and often we won't be able to come to an agreement with a seller, at that point. And it might be that they need to do another 6 months with agents before they come to realise that actually probably advice we were giving was correct.
Okay.
So the certainty of sale, we aim to sell in excess of 80%, and certainly this year we are at that figure. We're in excess of
that figure,
80% of what we've offered, we've sold. So,
and I think another great advantage of auction is transparency. People trust the process. They can stand in the room. They can see the other people bidding. They know they're not being told a bit of a tale by the agent, if I can put it that way. Very transparent, and that means that people can bid with confidence, and they'll bid to their maximum, and occasionally might even bid above their maximum.
Well, the legal packs, isn't there as well?
Legal packs are there. You know everything about the property beforehand. There's no surprises to come afterwards. It's a very, very transparent process. And just going back to the pricing that Charles was talking about, another advantage of auction is we sell on average for something like 35 or 40% above our guide price. So if you go in with an estate agent, you're likely to be selling for less than your guide price. With an auction, it can be well over the guide price if we can get a queue of people and plenty of people bidding.
I think touching on David's point about transparency as well, is that very often we pick up properties that have failed at private treaty, and the reasons for that sale can sometimes sort of work themselves up into almost Chinese whispers. When people are then coming forward as later potential purchasers, knowing that a sale went wrong, the natural inclination is to ask what was the reason for the sale going wrong, and that message can get a bit mixed. And with a legal pack, it's there. The Gerrards Cross house was a perfect example. There were various covenants that were a little bit confusing, and two people had talked themselves out of making the purchase. We presented it to the market with everything in the legal pack. There you go. Here's all the information about these covenants. You make your own mind up. And so it wasn't sort of relying on second-hand rumours.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, everyone was chipping in with their view of what the covenants meant in that case. Whereas once you put it in the legal pack and people could just ask their lawyers about it, it sort of simplified, cut through all the fog.
Yeah.
So what if sellers aren't sure if auction's right for them?
Call us. Well, the thing is that we don't charge for an appraisal. We'll come out, we'll look at the property, and we will give an honest opinion. We've got no interest in taking a property into auction that we don't think we can sell. We try and give accurate, realistic indicators as to where the guide needs to be. The reserve that will be tied to the guide, so that's all discussed from the onset. We try and give what we think is the likely landing point, but that can be difficult. As with the properties we mentioned earlier that went higher than expected, when you have got that guide price right and the competition is there, the sale price can exceed expectations. But what we won't do is we won't come out and just give overly inflated guide prices, because that doesn't do us any favours or the seller. We end up with an unsold lot and incurring costs, and of course the seller incurs costs as well.
And just to emphasise, we do come out and look at properties. That there are some auctioneers about who think they can value a property from the comfort of their office. It's just not possible. So we do come out and we'll give our advice. But the other thing I just want to say about if sellers aren't sure about auction, and I quite understand that, it's not necessarily for everybody. Come along to an auction and watch. You don't have to be a participant. You don't have to buy. You don't have to sell. It's a public process. We have a room at the hotel in Milton Keynes. You can come have a cup of tea, cup of coffee beforehand and talk to us. The next auction, Charles, is on 30th of August coming is the next auction. So come along on the 30th of August. You don't need to make a booking. Enjoy the afternoon, see what goes on, and make yourself familiar with the process. I think to turn up on the day and it be your first auction, either buying or selling, would I think, understandably be quite nerve-wracking.
We have a few people come along and display their services. We have some solicitors and some lenders come along. So it's quite a busy, active environment. And then you can sit down and watch the bidding and just, as David says, familiarise yourself with the process. You know, we're a friendly team. We're there to welcome everyone, and we do want people to feel that they are welcome, whether they're just watching or not.
Yeah, and if you can't get along to the room, it's all live streamed. You can bid on the live stream, but if you just want to watch, log in on the day and you can watch us live.
Great. Good that there's a variety of options in order to see the actual auction. Is there anything else that you want to say before we conclude?
Yeah, well, simply that we thoroughly enjoy our job. We love the properties that we go to see, and we love the people we get to meet along the way, the buyers, the sellers, the lawyers, agents who work with us, other estate agents who put properties our way. And we feel our job really is to put everyone at their ease. It may be a novel experience for any one of those people, and we have to put people at their ease. So come and speak with us. We're happy to spend a bit of time with you, and if we can eventually do some business together, that's great for everybody. We can, and we do very often turn around what seems like a difficult, intractable problem, and we turn it around within a matter of weeks or even days sometimes, and suddenly, what looked like it's something going nowhere, there's a solution on the horizon.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's summed it up well.
Thank you very
I
much.
think the message of the day is that if you need to sell your property quickly, contact us. Thank you, David and Charles. Thank you for your
you very
time.
much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
listening. If you would like to speak to David and Charles, then their contact details can be found on our website. I have also, I know that Charles touched on Russell Beard earlier in the podcast. We have done a podcast with him about being a partner agent. So have a listen to that. Any partner agents out there that would like to learn about the benefits of collaborating with auction, then please do. Thank you again. And I will launch various other podcasts in the future. So hopefully you'll stay tuned. Many thanks. Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Podcasts are for informational purposes only and should not be considered as legal advice. We are not responsible for any losses, damages or liabilities that may arise. The advice and views are from the expert only.